I think looking at Clear, the Clear project and what we've done in the case studies across all of the partners, and we've also heard about the master's programme here with the University of Oslo. It's clear that we are, there are three types of case study, if you like, that are coming out of the project, and three things that I think are quite familiar in terms of the higher education response to innovation, to the innovation agenda. One is kind of new courses. It's easy to imagine, it's an obvious solution. New courses for different people, and at different levels and in different areas. It's also less obvious, but this is happening here too, right? With the new campus, new buildings and new kind of philosophies of how learning is constructed and how buildings service that. And the Ravensbourne case study is part of that. And then I think the more difficult stuff, and again this comes back to the conception of innovation from a science and technology pipeline to a doing, using, interfacing model, is how does higher education move from just being a supply side activity to being a kind of supply and demand side activity. And I think this is probably the hardest. This is the hardest thing for higher education. It appears to be the hardest thing across all of the partners in Clear, but I think psychologically it is also difficult for many institutions, certainly in the UK, to do this. And if you think about the economic orthodoxy, stand back, let the economy do what it must do. If you think about the pipeline model, policy has encouraged institutions just to be supply-side institutions, not to be concerned about how skills are utilised, how research is deployed. And in a sense, that is one of the things that has been changing and is difficult for institutions to grasp. I'm kind of indebted to colleagues from Bergen for showing us this work when we first met in Italy last year. And I think this sums up where the supply side, where higher education really is. And I think if we're honest, this is a very helpful state of play. This is where the passive learning chain is sort of revealed. Or this is, even though we want to be proactive, this shows where the expertise is clustered. So we're on the right page for understanding how important creativity and innovation is. We're pretty good at delivering programs, designing and delivering programs that will help to put more research and more human capital. And I don't mean all of us here, but if we take a kind of a collective understanding of what the learning chain does, that's what we're good at. We're less good at developing education for creativity and innovation, and arguably even less good at delivering education, whether it's undergraduate, postgraduate or kind of PhD level, through creativity and innovation. So you can see where our comfort, and even this bit is pretty new. So you can see where our sort of change process is sort of heading, and it's also part of that same kind of linear problem, that same sort of supply side sort of push model, from something that kind of happens over here, kind of then goes out, ends up here, and the EU have tried to develop a kind of much more holistic kind of view of it. But in truth, this sort of sums it up really. I mean, it's something you'll all be quite familiar with, is that whilst everybody talks about innovation, and I think that's as true in higher education as it is in the economy, the model is still this one. Put stuff in at this end, somebody else gets stuff out the other end, and that's a model not just of kind of economic change, but it's also a model of public policy understanding, and it's also a model, I think, of kind of where some of the weaknesses in further and higher education as a sort of supply side actor. We get trapped in all of that. It's the easiest place to resort to.